Hi everyone, welcome to Community Building 101. This is a learning series powered by We Create Space. I'm Michael, I'm the founder of We Create Space, and I'm going to be guiding us through today's session and today's conversation. For those who might be new to our community spaces, We Create Space is a community-led platform, network, and a consultancy with a focus on culture change, community building, and social innovation. And we provide clients with lots of different things, but digital learning, shared experiences, data-led insights, all around creating inclusive cultures and building community, both at a global and a local level. And we do that through bespoke events, educational content, and consultancy support as well. We created this Community Building 101 series really as an opportunity to bring people together to learn and reflect, and most importantly, take action, particularly around the topics relating to well-being, inclusion, and leadership. And every session, we actually spotlight innovative community-led projects and platforms and companies that are doing the work. And we explore with them how we can build stronger, safer, more supportive community spaces together, both online and offline. And this week's session really comes at a critical moment. So many of us in this room are probably still processing the recent Supreme Court ruling, which directly impacts trans women and sets a dangerous precedent, really, for how LGBT plus rights, particularly trans rights, are being eroded. These are no longer abstract headlines. These really do affect how safe we feel in our bodies, in our identities, and in our community spaces as well. That's why today's focus on mental health, well-being, self-care, community care really couldn't be any more relevant and any more urgent. So we're very honored to be collaborating today with Voda, the LGBTQIA plus mental health app, to explore how we can better support ourselves and one another during these challenging times. So whether you're joining from work or home or maybe somewhere in between, you're in the right place, and the space is for you. We're going to begin shortly with a grounding exercise, and that's going to be led by lead therapist at Voda and also We Create Space facilitator, Chris, to help us all arrive fully in this moment. And then we're going to spotlight the amazing work that Voda's doing with Jaron, and then dive into a powerful conversation with Jaron, its founder, about digital tools, about mutual care, and how we can build more resilient queer communities together. So just a little reminder before we begin, please do participate in whatever way feels right for you. You can keep your camera on or off. You can drop reflections in the chat or just simply listen and absorb. This really is a space that we want to be grounded in safety and accessibility and collective care. So with that, let's take a breath and arrive. And I'll hand over to Chris now to guide us through this exercise.
Thank you so much, Michael. Lovely to see you all today, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Just give me a thumbs up. Yeah, great. So to echo, I guess, what you've shared, Michael, yeah, I think we can all agree that yesterday was not an easy day. And I think many of us have likely been impacted by the Supreme Court's ruling, and a ruling that once again is targeting our community. And we know this is obviously coming amid a wave of ongoing political attacks on queer and trans lives, on bodily autonomy, and on our basic humanity. So before we go any further, I just want to say, if you're feeling angry, tired, afraid, numb, or if you're not sure what you're feeling at all, you're not alone. There's no right way to be here today. So wherever you are, whether seated, standing, or moving, I'm going to invite you to please to stop whatever else you might be doing. And just for now, can we take a moment to be with ourselves and to be with each other? So this is a centering practice, and I invite you to place your feet flat on the floor, a little bit apart. So find a position that makes space for your breath. And if you're wondering where your center is, it's about 2 inches below your belly button. So you might want to place a hand there if that feels supportive. You might just bring your attention there. So begin to take a few deeper breaths into this space. Not to fix or change anything, but just to notice what's happening in your body right now. So you might scan your body from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet. What sensations are here? What wants your attention? So this centering practice is a practice of returning to ourselves, returning to the land beneath us, and returning to each other. So it's a practice of remembering that even when under attack, even when it feels hard to breathe, we are still here. We are still breathing, and we are still worthy of joy. So we center in 3 directions. We center in length, we center in width, and we center in depth. So let's begin with length, which we associate with dignity. Imagine you are a tree. Your feet are the roots, your body the trunk, and your head the canopy. Feel yourself rooted and upright. As people holding multiple identities, especially on a day like today, we know what it's like to have our dignity threatened. We know what it is to be told we do not belong. But in this moment, I invite you to reclaim your dignity. Let your spine rise a little taller. Let your breath expand a little more. Let your body take up just a little bit more space. You are allowed to be here in your full embodied self. Now I invite you to feel into your width, which is associated with expansiveness and boundaries. So notice the space between your feet, your hips, your shoulders, and your ears. Feel into where you end and where another begins. So for those of us whose boundaries have been violated or erased, this can be radical. What would it be like just for this moment to expand into your full width, to feel the edges of your being? You don't need to force it, just get curious. What does it mean to take up more space in your own body and to reclaim your right to exist, to feel, and to take up room? And now I invite you to center in our depth, which we associate with ancestry and legacy. So you may have complicated feelings about the word ancestor. So some of us may not know our ancestors. Some of us may have been adopted or have adopted others. Some of us may have experienced hurt or harm from our ancestors. But I invite you, if it feels supportive, to feel into who is with you, to sense into the presence of loved ones, ancestors, who walk with you, protect you, and guide you. So feel their hands at your back. Feel their love moving through you, and let yourself be held. And as we connect to legacy, let's remember this truth. Our existence in this world is temporary, but we are still alive right now. So, in light of that, as you feel into your body, into your breath, into your life, what do you care about? What do you long for? What truly matters to you? What would it mean to make joy or to find delight, even if it's small, right here in your breath, in your body, and your aliveness? So let's take a collective breath together. And if it helps, soften your jaw, relax your eyes, unclench your forehead, and slowly and gently let yourself arrive into the space today.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Chris. I think I needed that for sure today. That was the I think the first time I paused since I woke up. So yeah, thank you so much for that.
Pleasure.
Okay, so Jaron, over to you.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Chris, for that beautiful visualization exercise. Hi, everyone. I'm Jaron. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm co-founder at Voda. We are the LGBTQ plus men's health companion. So I'm really excited to share our work in helping LGBT people with self-care, but also share how we are wanting to bring LGBTQ plus communities together, because communal care can also be a form of self-care. I'll introduce our work, and then I'll get into questions with Michael, and then open it up for Q&A. Next slide, please. So before I dive in, I'll just share a little bit of our team. So we are a very small team, very new team. We're built by a team that has faced the shame and stigma you all, I imagine, have faced as well. So on the right of me is, as you can see, is Chris, our lead therapist. We are designed with leading therapists like Chris, but also an intersectional panel of LGBTQ plus clinical psychologists to make sure our app is designed, is grounded in both professional expertise and lived experience. Something that connects the team is that we all queer, and we all grew up in different parts of the world, but we experience shame in varying different ways. For me, I grew up in Singapore, where up until 2 years ago, it was illegal to be gay, and I struggled a lot with my mental health growing up. And my co-founder, Chris, to my left. So quick one. So my name is Jared, but to my left and to my right, both my founders are called Chris, so it's slightly confusing. But to my left, Chris is a gay dad of two kids, two adopted kids, and grew up under Section 28 in Scotland. And our lead therapist, Chris, who just led our running exercise, is trans non-binary. They are a leading gender, sexuality, and relationship diversity therapist, and used to work in the NHS, and now leads training for many new therapists in gender affirming psychotherapy. So in a way, our team is all building what we wish we had in our younger years. Can I get the next slide, please, Neil? And I think this lived experience on our team really translates into our work. We currently support around 36,000 people around the world, most of whom are in the UK and the US. And what Voda does is we help you learn real life therapy techniques so you could cope with stress and anxiety, but also work through LGBT specific challenges like coming out, gender dysphoria, and everyday issues like hate speech, living through hostile political climates, but also customize support on programs that other apps cover, but with a very LGBTQ plus lens. So we have support on body image, topics for LGBTQ plus people, cis and trans people might experience this differently, polyamorous relationships, managing substance use, building confidence in a world where you might not be able to express yourself to the fullest of what you wish to. All of our content is created with LGBTQ plus therapists, and we have a whole suite of wellness tools like journaling, fun exercises inspired by the likes of Duolingo, and also queer voice meditations. So whether you're trans, affected by the UK Supreme Court ruling yesterday, or even an ally or just trying to grow, there is something in the app for you. Even though we're a very new app, we were app of the day multiple times now with the Apple App Store. I'll now talk about how Voda is also different in terms of self-care. So I think the crux of how Voda is different from most apps is we combine agency with a systemic lens. So we don't treat your identity like the problem. And what we really quickly realize with mainstream apps and mainstream mental health services is that they often just look at yourself and be like, if you have anxiety, you're the issue, you need to regulate your anxiety. But to be honest, and I think in today's world, anxiety is a proportionate response to the things that are happening in the world. And so just going through, for example, an NHS 12-week program on cognitive behavioral therapy to change the way you think might not be very helpful, because actually anxiety might be what is keeping you safe from certain unsafe scenarios and situations. So that's what Voda does differently. We center both self-care, but we also address systemic issues. We think it's very important to teach emotional regulation, so you have agency in the sense that I can regulate myself. But it's also extremely important, I think this is what other apps don't address, is it doesn't name social injustice. So that's what Voda does. And we, for the next slide, this brings on to a lot of our free resources. So we have a bunch of free resources on the app. So we do charge a small fee so we can pay the team, but most, if not all, of the programs for the trans communities are free. We have a very extensive library of programs centered for trans people. They are designed by a team of 4 trans therapists, Chris included, who led the team, but we have trans therapists who are accredited and identify across gender, sexuality, ethnicity, and neurodivergence who designed this library with us. And what it has is programs on anxiety, pre, during, and post-transitioning, coping with misgendering, coping with medical stigma, navigating menopause as a trans person, very extensive range of programs that you wouldn't find anywhere else. And this is something that we're extremely proud of. And this is also something that, our paid memberships help fund us and allow us to do. So yeah, and lastly, before we get into Q&A, we also want to use data to effect change. So we have a lot of users, and you can opt in. We do surveys often, and we surveyed 2,200 trans people last year. And we created the State of Trans Mental Health report last year. And we have now shared that with, I think, over 100 NGOs and nonprofits around the world in the UK, US, Canada, and different parts of the world to help people understand, the greater cause of mental health disparities within LGBTQ plus communities. And, one of the findings of this report was we realized that fear of social anxiety or fear of social acceptance, lack of social acceptance, was a much bigger cause of ill mental health in trans people than gender dysphoria. And that was quite surprising, right? Because gender dysphoria and gender incongruence is something that is heavily experienced and can be quite distressing without gender affirming care. And this really just points out, I think, the state of the world as it is today. And yeah, over time, we want to use data to effect change because we believe self-care is important, but at some point, we've got to stop at some point it has to be stopped being our responsibility to self-regulate. We need to remove the sources of trauma for trans and LGBTQ plus people globally. So yeah, there's a little bit about Voda. We would love for you to try us out. We're very new, so feel free to send us feedback, both good and heavily critical feedback. We're very happy with that, and we want to build the best app possible for our community. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jaron, and thank you, to you and all the team as well for the work that you're doing. It's been beautiful to see how Voda has evolved over the years, because we kind of started out at the same time. And so how you have approached the evolution of what you're offering and how intersectional these services are and these different resources. It's really beautiful, because I know how much time and effort and energy goes into creating them, but I also know how much they're going to be appreciated. So that's awesome. I'd love to go into a bit more detail about your origin story and some of the work that you're doing, because I know that, like me, your personal experience also
Mm.
inspired Voda's creation. What
Yeah.
was it in particular about traditional mental health support that made you realize LGBTQIA communities needed something different?
Mm. Yeah. So I think my coming out story is basically my founding story for Voda. Uh, I knew I was gay from a very young age before I even knew what the word gay meant. But I think from the moment I knew it was a huge secret I had to hide from everyone around me, because my parents would use the word gay as an insult in casual conversation. And the only gay people I saw on were on the news, and they were dying of AIDS or portrayed as perverts or pedos. So, having that moment, I don't know if I think everyone here, maybe many people here, could resonate with the moment you realize you're queer or you're gay or you're LGBTQIA plus, and that really affected you. And it was a secret that I had to hide for the longest time, because I thought I'll be rejected by my friends and family. Um, so unsurprisingly, I was a pretty anxious and depressed kid. And even though my parents would be like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I couldn't tell them. And even when they brought me to a psychiatrist, because I had huge anxiety issues, I couldn't come out to the psychiatrist either. So we were really stuck. And yeah, for the longest time, I just really struggled with mental health as a child. And I think that experience really helped me understand how and why to build Voda. And I think a lot of mainstream mental health services are also unable to help a lot of LGBTQ plus people. And I think even though LGBTQ plus people have been shown to have higher rates of mental health disorders, I think it's also underrepresented, because a lot of people are afraid to come out to their mental health professionals. And that really informs the design of Voda, because if you look at our app, you actually can't really tell it's a queer app. We don't really put rainbows everywhere. We think representation is extremely important, but we also recognize that overly queer representation within the app could inadvertently out people. And so we want Voda to be something that you are comfortable using on the tube, in public transport. If someone looks over your phone for a long time, they could tell you're reading something about queer issues. But with a cursory glance, they won't be able to tell. And that's why the logo is also designed to be just to fit into a phone, and no one's going to have a second thought. And that's why we also only, even though the content could be used by adults, we mostly and primarily are set, can be used for kids. We mostly are centered for older populations. So we market to 18 plus. And that's also because of parental controls when it comes to mental health apps. We don't want a kid downloading an app and then having had that conversation with their family. So yeah, all those little life experiences and nuances really informs the work that we do. And lastly, I also think an app is really helpful for people who are exploring for the first time. We get people writing letters to us saying, "I'm in my 40s or 50s, and this is the first time I'm able to write about it or share about it," because they might not be even in the stage where they could even talk about it with a therapist. Certainly for me, I couldn't say the words "I'm gay" for the longest time. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, there was a point there that really hit around traditional tools and them often unintentionally internalizing this blame. And it's so powerful to reframe healing through that systemic lens you mentioned, especially when lived realities aren't always safe or affirming. So with that in mind, if traditional methods aren't enough, how do peer-to-peer support and self-care fit into today's landscape for the LGBTQIA plus community?
Yeah, and it's really what I want to talk about as well today, which is I think self-care and communal care really sits together. I think self-care is really important. There's this Audre Lorde quote, right, which is in a hostile political climate, self-care is a form of resistance. It's a form of resistance against the ones that are trying to oppress you. And I think self-care is so important because it helps us self-regulate, but it also helps us better take care of each other. So yeah, self-care in terms of learning mindfulness and therapy skills to heal is helpful, but we also need communal care. And part of how Voda wants to inspire people to partake in communal care, which is like mutual care networks, donating to charities, volunteering, petitioning, advocacy. Part of how we do that on the app is we don't just teach therapy skills, we also teach psychoeducation, modern intersectionality concepts. Because for people to want to get to action and help each other, they need to understand why. So we have programs on Voda, for example, on understanding power and privilege, understanding your intersectional identities and where you are oppressed and where actually, you know, you might have more to give. And why is it important that we help each other? And also finding the commonalities in our lived experience in the sense that I feel very strongly for trans communities right now because I feel what is happening with trans people, that gaslighting and the weaponization of the language of care is exactly what I experienced as a gay kid, where there's this language of we are helping, there's this gaslighting of we are doing all these things to help trans people, but actually you're just taking away trans people's human rights, but you're lying through your teeth. And that's very common to, I think, when I was a kid, where they're like, oh, gays should go through conversion therapy, so you'll be better. And it's like, we're kind of force feeding you something that is harmful to you, while wrapping it up in a language of care and concern that is, I think, really inauthentic. And we talk about that on the app itself. So we are then able to identify and name systemic injustice. And so more allies could also be galvanized into action, because I think right now with the UK Supreme Court ruling yesterday, a lot of people are confused because the ruling on the surface says, well, this just clarifies things, and this actually trans people have protections for being trans. But if you look at how it's interpreted in reality, they're saying, well, then trans women can't enter spaces for cis women, or trans women are not afforded the rights of cis women, even though they are perceived as women. It becomes this quagmire of confusion. And it's very important that as a company and a mental health app, that we clarify that and share that with the community as well. I think I kind of rambled on a little bit. I hope it answered your question.
No, thank you. I love what you said about mutual care being both almost like a balm and a form of resistance, and that idea of taking care of each other is as important as individual self-care, and that both are really needed, that they need to kind of coexist together. That feels like a real kind of takeaway. So looking, like you mentioned, you did mention the kind of current political climate, especially with rising anti-LGBTQIA plus sentiment. How do you think mutual care within the community can positively impact the wider global community?
Yeah, I think now, even within the LGBTQ plus community, we're being encouraged to turn on each other, be it through racial issues, immigrant issues, class issues, Israel-Palestine. The algorithms and the media are trying to make us turn against each other and stop taking care of each other because we can't come to a common conclusion. And I think we just need to see through that and see mutual care as a form of resistance. And I think it's really, really hard to do, which is to give people that you disagree with curiosity as to how they came to what how they came to the stance today. I think, for example, within the what's happening with the trans community now, a lot of, I think, TERFs are trying to turn LGBT people away from trans people. And I think the implicit seeds that the media have planted is, with a lot of people that don't realize, is that you're just bombarding headlines with trans people who are criminals or negative stories. And a lot of people don't realize that they have then implicitly made people think trans people are inherently dangerous, which is obviously just not true. And we need to challenge that. And that's the same strand of, I think, how media has done that for immigrant communities in the past, or people who are of a different religion to you, just bombard the news with one or two people who happen to be, say, a criminal from that community all the time to make you turn against them. So yeah, I think we really need to extend care and curiosity. And that's when we can give each other curiosity and come together, then we can actually resist. I think right now, we're just getting people fighting with each other, but actually the people oppressing you are up here. Because even for TERFs, I think, even people who are trans exclusionary feminists, they're actually oppressed by the patriarchy as well. But they are looking at the wrong people. They're looking at trans women, but they should be looking at the patriarchal system in which they are in. So I think, yeah, first we need to give each other grace and curiosity, and then we can come together, and then we could resist and change the system. So then LGBTQ plus people don't have to self-regulate and heal all the time.
Yeah, that's such a powerful reminder that caring for each other is radical, is queer, it's political in a
Mm,
world that really benefits from our division, from our separation. Choosing community is resistance.
mm,
So coming back to some of the digital resources that Voda offers as part of its kind of core service, um, what has uptake looked like?
mm.
Why is it so crucial that both individuals and communities have access to these important tools?
Um, yeah, so we have about 36,000 people now that use Voda, many of whom are can't afford therapy or stuck on waiting lists, or who don't feel safe accessing in-person support. So yeah, I think for us, we have had to go consumer and serve the community directly, because initially we wanted to always work with the system. We wanted to work with the NHS. We've spoken with so many senior NHS, the National Health System service stakeholders here. But there's two things, which is they're like, well, there's not enough data. And secondly, there's no money for this. There's no fund. Like, where's the money supposed to come from? And the general sense didn't really care and don't just think we're complaining. So we've had to come and create these resources ourselves and distribute it ourselves through charities, through communities, through pride networks. So the reception has been great. We co-create resources very quickly. So we have a freelance team of therapists that we work with to write resources with us, and we respond to current affairs. So when Meta changed hate speech policy stances, that you can then call LGBTQ plus people mentally ill, which is also factually false. So like being LGBTQ plus in the past used to be classified as a mental disorder in the past. And that's how, the medicalization of it has been used to discriminate against us. But it's also factually false that LGBTQ plus people are mentally ill. So you shouldn't be able to say that. But those platforms are allowing people to, but we release a coping with hate speech module with therapists to help people cope with that. So yeah, the uptake's been great. We would love to hear from all of you in the audience as well, what kind of resources you want us to create for the community. And especially, I think, for those who are in rural communities as well, Voda can be very helpful. And in the long term, we're going to start building peer support networks on the app itself where people can connect with each other. Because I think a big thing people struggle with, especially in rural communities, is loneliness and a lack of connection. So right now on Voda, you can only find resources, but we've not yet had a way for people to connect with each other safely.
Thank you for that. And yes, I would echo what you've said. It's clear that community designed and community led resources like the trans plus library are filling a vital gap where traditional systems they're just falling short, really. And I think it's admiring and it's inspirational to kind of see how you're going about filling that void, really, and collaborating with others who are also passionate about supporting your mission. So, last question before we go to audience Q&A. Perhaps can you just share a bit about like what your hopes are for Voda moving forward?
Oh, wow. I
What's your
think
big
we want to vote as be I mean, for me personally, we want to be the world-class mental health companion for LGBTQ plus people in the world. That when someone thinks of who's LGBTQ plus has mental health challenges or mental health goals in terms of wanting to be more confident and build greater self-esteem, that they think of Voda. But in the longest term, my aim for Voda is that to have a world where we can support, like set up a foundation for Voda so we can fund activists around the world. It's illegal to be gay in over 65 countries around the world. And we're regressing in so many different countries. Hungary just banned all pride gatherings and want to use AI to detect people. Trinidad and Tobago just banned homosexuality. So we're regressing in lots of parts of the world, and we need to be funding activists around the world. So ideally, then there isn't a way, then maybe in the longest term, Voda doesn't need to exist, because I think the mental health industry, for me, it's a really weird industry. It's a bit like dating apps. It's like dating apps make more money the longer you're single. So they should have no incentive for you to get better. And so then for mental health apps, I'm not saying it's us, but like technically they make more money the longer you're not well. And that's just really weird within a capitalist framework. So of course, I do want we are backed by a very intersectional array of investors. We have LGBTQ plus investors, angel investors who have backed Voda. So we are a venture-backed company, but they all share our values in a sense that, I would like to give them a proportionate reward on the risk they're taking to invest in Voda for the greater good of the community. But we very much have ethics at our core, and we very much, understand the system that we live in, and we're not like delusional or delulu in like how when capitalism goes untethered, unhindered, it leads to really bad outcomes for the community. I think some people call it enshittification of platforms. Platforms are very good in the beginning, but then once they've extracted most value from you, they start to like do what they can to provide a shitty service because you're stuck with them, and we don't want to be there. And lastly, my personal goal is to one day go back to Singapore to campaign for equal marriage. So we don't yet have equal marriage in Singapore. It's very far away from that, but that will be like a lifelong personal dream of mine.
Thank you so much for that. And yeah, it's so interesting. People also ask me like, where do I see We Create Space going? And it would be great to, for there not to be any need for these spaces, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. These community spaces that are safe, inclusive, and promote kind of community care, well-being, and healing are more vital now than ever. So thank you for doing what you do. Maybe let's just take a few moments to reflect on some of the key takeaways from today. And I'd love for you to drop your own takeaways in the chat too. We're going to collate them and share them as part of our post-event wrap-up across social. So I think for me, self-care is community care was a really key element. We can't do this work alone. Healing happens when we're connected. Consistency is key. It's the small, regular practices that Voda can help you build that create that lasting change, both personally and collectively. And the final one for me was inclusive resources really need to be intersectional, and queer mental health isn't just a one-size-fits-all approach. It's really something that needs tools that speak to our full range of identities and lived realities. Jaron, how about your key takeaways?
Yeah. So key takeaways for me, please take care of yourselves. I know it's so cliche. Sometimes we all say take care of yourself and self-care is resistance, but it really is. And secondly, I think there is joy to be found in taking care of each other through tough times. I do say this from more of a privileged position as a cisgender gay man, but I think in helping each other through these difficult times, we might also find more depth in our lives. Uh, I feel joyful and miserable at the same time sometimes. And lastly, is to have a systemic lens. So we have to work to change systems. So we don't have to keep healing. We need to like zoom out and be like, and understand what is happening to our community as a system, so we don't continue to prolong our suffering, because we're so zoom in on the little things. We're so zoom in on fighting with each other over every single issue, but actually zoom out and be like, actually, who's actually oppressing us and what is the system actually trying to do to our entire community?
Thank you. Yes. If this session has perhaps sparked something in you, if you're thinking about how to build safer, more inclusive spaces yourself, whether that's in your workplace, community, or organization, we'd love to support you. That's exactly what we do at We Create Space. So, you can connect with us via website, Instagram, LinkedIn, or just drop us an email too. We're always up for a chat about how we can co-create something impactful together. And finally, if you haven't already, download the Voda app and explore their incredible library of queer mental health resources. You can also sign up to their newsletter to stay in the loop and keep learning. And yes, do share this space with someone else who might also be interested today. So let's keep showing up for ourselves, for each other. Thank you once again, and see you next time.